At the beginning of the semester, we were locked and loaded. We were ready to go with 10 things in mind. And as someone described it watching this, you saw me sacrifice each thing one by one until only one thing was left. Academics. The one thing I didn't want to do going into this semester was sacrifice everything for academics, and sadly that is exactly what happened. Well, how can we learn from this entire semester, and how did I fare in these classes? Season 5, episode 100 through whatever the 100 it is, because I don't know how to count, plus the off season, including winter break, take 1. What is good, everybody? My name is Jake, and welcome back to the One Take series, where we get one chance to reflect on the day. No second chances, no third chances, one take and one take only. Obviously, we're going to be reflecting on a little bit more than a day, and we're also going to be reflecting on winter break, which I call the off season, because it's just, well, it's supposed to be a time for rest. We'll get into that more later. But basically, if we're just talking about this, and actually I realized it's not 100, it is 101, so I apologize for that. Episode 100 was, I think, Goodbye Gluttony. So basically, I'll just talk a little bit more about things where we left off. So the first thing I wanted to mention, because I remember from episode 100, I talked about a cover letter, right? Let's just say that didn't get done, right? And that is the reason why I didn't come back to it, was because I was ashamed that even though I was talking about, all right, next time like I'm on here, I need to make sure that I have a cover letter, and so I just got scared. I didn't do it. I put it off. I'm not proud of it. But we got to get into it soon, because now is definitely the time. Even though I've applied to some internships, which I am proud of that, this cover letter, we need to make sure that it gets done, absolutely no questions asked, by the end of this week, because we really can't. By the way, the end of this week, so I am currently, this is January 13th right now, okay? And so the reason is that tomorrow is when I'm going to be starting season 6, all right? We're going to get more into season 6 tomorrow, which I'm actually covering in season 6. But right now, I'm just trying to recap any loose ends from season 5, get that out of the way, get that off our plate, so that way we can focus on semester 6 going into the future. So the cover letter needs to get done by the end of this week, and by the end of this week, let's actually set a deadline. So by the time that episodes 4 through 5 are filmed, okay? By that time, that is the hard deadline for that, okay? Let's aim for 3. Let's aim for episode 3 of season 6. But that it needs to get done, no questions asked, because I got to start applying for more internships, and I got to land something this summer. Whether I'm doing a research position or whether I'm doing an internship, I think I am going to start looking at research, or just like community outreach, just doing something regarding my major, absolutely. So pretty much, so that's one thing, right? I'm trying to think of anything else that I talked about. I think that was the main thing that was like, okay, I have to get done by this, and this, but okay. Let me see. So, yeah, I guess now, before we get into academics, because that was obviously the big thing this semester, I'm just going to go over the other things, and then I'm going to talk about my experience with academics and how we can apply semester 5 knowledge going into semester 6. So, first, if we're going to start with, by the way, I got a bunch of markers for Christmas, so there are a bunch of 2-sided ones. I still have the original ones over here, but these are really, really sick. I like them a lot. So, you know what, like right now, I honestly feel like we're not going to experiment too much with it. We're just going to use the old markers and just kind of go down the list, honestly. What's a good marker for this? We'll do the blue one. The blue one has been trusty for sure. So basically, if we look at Christ, right, pretty much not a lot really happened this semester. It was kind of unfortunate, even just during this time period. The only really good thing was that during the break, our parents showed us, or not, I don't know why I said our, my parents showed us, yeah, your guys' parents as well, literally. But basically, yeah, my parents showed me a really cool church that we ended up going to, and it was really nice. They kind of like, they broadcast their sermons or whatever, so I might look into that kind of like on Sunday or whatever, if like certain days I don't feel like going into the church, but we'll see. I might try and find a church near here as well, just because it is a good practice, but not as much as I would have liked. All right, gym, I'm trying to think if I actually did. I feel like I actually did pretty well. There were actually a lot of days in there towards the end where I ended up going to the gym. which is actually really nice. It was really refreshing. And yeah, actually, I do remember there were a bunch of days in there where I was able to get out of class early, or just finish my day earlier than I normally would. And thankfully, what it ended up leading to was more time for the gym. So that was actually really nice. I liked that a lot. Other things I'm trying to remember. So there was internships. Did a little bit, but like not enough. The fact that I still haven't made a cover letter is just like, still unacceptable. I'm ashamed of that. Research. Definitely plan on rekindling this. I'm probably gonna send out an email either tomorrow morning or the next morning, just kind of letting the research professor know, hey, sorry, I kind of fell out of research, and I still plan on doing kind of like a little bit regarding that. Not a little bit. I want to try and organize about maybe 10 hours per week, if not 10 hours, then maybe around 8 to 10 hours roughly is the range that I'm going for. I would love to do 10. I think that'd be great hands-on experience. And so we're just going to try and set that up with the professor, just try and get it reignited, just so that way we don't really throw it away, because I feel like I just kind of like it left on like a weird note where like I accidentally ghosted them. I don't really want that to happen. So if we look at the rest of them, these are going to be out of order, by the way. I know that there was also work. What did I use as the icon for work? I don't even remember. Obviously, one of them was Big Brother. And then what was work? Probably it was a $. That would be my guess. Yeah, okay. So basically, well, I'll say one thing, right? This break, this off season, I'll be completely frank with you. Sadly, I went into it, and especially because I finished a lot later than most students would this semester, just because I was literally, it was past finals week and I was still going. It was absolutely insane. But fortunately and unfortunately, this is pretty much all I was doing over the off season, right? I didn't really do it in between the school range itself, just because I was so locked in on finals and stuff like that. But basically, for the off season itself, pretty much Big Brother and work was the only thing I did. It was kind of unfortunate because I was really hoping to use this break to get some rest and to do things that I personally wanted to do, and instead it was kind of consumed by things that I had to do. Even there were certain things like my family wanted to go to this one concert, and I didn't want to go, and I still had a good time at the concert, but it was just unfortunate because I feel like there were a bunch of things over break that made me realize that while I'm in school, while I'm in college, and while I'm out of college, I've just been kind of doing a lot of things for everybody else and not really as much for me. So, it's kind of unfortunate because I feel like there's like a bunch of stories about how people are like, they're just constantly wrapped up in like everybody else and kind of like what everyone else wants to do, but then like peel back the layers and like what's really underneath all of that, and what is really like at the core of the person doing these things for everyone else. And that I kind of realized that just because I've spent so much time into academics, it's like I said, it just consumed me, which, like I said, is the one thing I didn't want to do going into the semester, but it's the one thing that I had to do because I didn't really have another choice. If I didn't, I'd just be absolutely screwed. So it is what it is, but I think I'm going to have a little bit more time this semester. We'll get to more of the academics later, but right now what I want to bring up is that basically for Big Brother and Sleep, massive developments have been made. So I'm going to go through, I'll check everything. I'll check and like X everything, right? Okay. We'll say check and X, and then we'll say this one is also a check. I'd say this one is mostly an X. There haven't really been enough developments to really make a difference. This one has been an X, obviously, and then these two have been check marks. Right? And so basically with Big Brother, obviously I spent a lot of the break working, like I said. I have got a good amount of money in, and especially what's really cool is the fact that, basically for tuition and stuff like that, I was able to get scholarships that have completely paid it off, which is very nice. So all I have to worry about is really rent. It's just fantastic. And so that actually does remind me about something that I have to do for starting with season 6, is that tomorrow, and I've just been putting it off because I'm just lazy, but this is a get done tomorrow thing. This is like, again, a non-negotiable. let's see, I'll just put it as SCH, which is a thing for scholarship. And so basically, this is a get done by one, pretty much kind of thing. This needs to get done before I record one take tomorrow. If I do not know, it's not, there's not even an if I do not get it done. It will get done tomorrow, even if it has, yeah, oh my gosh, we'll get into that. It will get done tomorrow though. That's non-negotiable. This has to get done tomorrow because basically the thing is that I have a scholarship that applies $5,000 for each semester. One for basically last semester and then one time this semester as well. And so I can reapply for that scholarship, long story short. And so that is why that, even though it's due, I believe in March, I want to get this out of the way because it's only going to get harder from here. That's the main mistake that I made for internships especially, and looking for any kind of thing with that is that if there's anything that I've learned from this semester, it's that you have to start early on things. You have to start very early, otherwise everyone's going to beat you to it. And so specifically with the scholarships, if I don't do it now, it's only going to get harder to do down the road, so we might as well knock it out before we record the next one take tomorrow. If we go through everything else, basically, I'm trying to remember the rest of the things. So the next thing was probably going to be music. I do remember music was one of the things. Okay. Yes, thankfully I did get time for music. Okay, it actually is pretty hype, I will say. So I was able to release a remix of a song within this time frame, within the school time frame, and then I was also able to release one over break as well. So I have a full plan rolled out for that. Okay, the current plan is basically I dropped one on December, I dropped one on New Year's, okay, I dropped one in February, I dropped two in March, and then the album comes out in April. Album. So true. Basically, yeah, so that's when we get that out, and that's going to be early Easter. I want to make that a priority because sadly I was not able to get the album out. Remember, that was one of the main things I wanted to do going into the semester. And it's 2026. I had different plans for music in 2026. I was actually supposed to be about to be releasing a different album, and here we are still stuck on the same one. So this just, again, another thing that has to be done by that. You know what, we're gonna set we'll set a calendar actually. Let me look something up. I'm gonna have to turn on my computer for this, but I need to, while that's booting up, right, I gotta hold myself accountable, right, and it's just important. So now we've gone through these, which means we have 8, right? Sleep, I mean, sleep was okay. It wasn't great. It was like alright. I think I got like I averaged 7 hours, so I'll put like a check mark with that. And then obviously I remember now, of course, the one thing I'm forgetting is the one thing that I'm doing right now, which is one take. Yeah, that obviously didn't happen. So, yeah. Here we go. And then I'm going to wait for, oh, look at that, my computer's restarting, fantastic. So basically that is what happened with all 10 of these across this time span, right? Which means that the last thing I have for is academics. Well, if I sacrificed everything for academics, how did I actually fare in academics this semester? Well, let's go ahead and see, okay? The first thing is that, well, I need a translator on each of the classes, right? We're gonna go in order of probably least intensive to most intensive. How should I do it, actually? You know what, let's start with, I don't know what to start with. This is actually interesting for suspense purposes. I'm trying to think of how I ordered it before. So there were a few classes, I know I spoiled some of them, but basically, we'll start with the one that I didn't spoil. We'll go with linear algebra, right? And linear algebra was a class that I didn't really put too much effort towards. And I didn't really have to put too much effort towards because I got good grades in it regardless, right? On a lot of the exams. It was really only until the third exam where things started going a little bit wrong and a little bit south. But overall, I would say that I'm pretty satisfied in my thing. I wish I studied a little bit more for the final than I ended up really doing, because I feel like I could have probably done well. However, it was just a case of, if I have to sacrifice one class for the other, I much rather sacrifice linear, because I know I can come back easier in linear. And honestly, I didn't do too bad. I ended up getting a B, right? It's a little embarrassing because out of all the classes, linear algebra is probably one of the easiest math classes in engineering, specifically my type of engineering, to get it in. However, I will gladly take a B. I'm not going to complain about a B, right? You know, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing, really. Wow, I'm already out of water. This is terrible. I'm gonna go get some more water. I will be right back. Feel free to skip the video. Okay. Anyways, so pretty much, okay, yeah. Well, let's start with the calendar first. Okay, that's the first thing we're going to do. Which, by the way, the reason why I'm pulling up the calendar is so that way I can go ahead and snipe it. That's what we'll call each of these things. This is snipe, which means we have to get something done by a specific date. So, if that's, okay, so 7/14, 21, 24, no, that's not how math works, what the fuck, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, 70, 77, 84, alright, by episode, it sounds like a while from now, and that's actually a little terrifying for me if you think about it. The album has to get done by episode 86. Wow. And actually, we need to allow a little bit more time for the release of it. So really, in reality, if we want to maybe factor in about like 2 weeks, maybe probably honestly 3, we'll say by episode 60. Therefore, this has to get done in 2 months. We have 2 months to get that album done. Oh boy. Yeah, this is, but we gotta pressure ourselves. This is how we gotta get stuff done at this point. We gotta set actual deadlines. Because that was the thing, I feel like that's a big problem that I made last semester, was the fact that I didn't pressure myself enough with deadlines and actually getting stuff done. I was just like, yeah, it has to get done by the end of the day, or it has to get done tomorrow. No, deadline. And this one, to actually be fair, I will, to be fair, push it to 1 or 2, specifically because of something that I want to get in with my schedule, that I'll definitely be expanding upon tomorrow, but I'll also be prefacing tonight as well. But basically, yeah, continuing back with the classes, right? Linear algebra was a B, okay? Going with the other things. We'll just go in the order that I took the classes. Yeah, that sounds fair. Hang on. Okay, so the next thing I believe that I took, right, there was a lab lecture. I'm not going to get into that, though. Okay, the next thing was the 1 p.m., right? Which, by the way, now that it's the end of the semester, I am now going to be revealing any names of classes that I didn't preface. So I will just start with the nicknames because I know I already spoiled some of them before in some of the previous episodes. But we'll go from here, right? The 1 p.m. was a class called math analysis. What is math analysis? Well, it's basically any type of math that involves all the hard stuff, right? Things from complex numbers to all the way to Fourier transforms. Fourier series and transforms were the problems that I was spending the most on. It was absolutely exhausting. There were some easy parts in there, like linear algebra was not that bad, but then there was also something called the residue theorem. I think I brought it up. It's just, what the frick is a residue theorem? Genuinely. But basically, it was just all over the place. It was very chaotic, right? And so, I believe I brought it up. Maybe I didn't bring it up. I can't remember. But basically, for context, right? There were 3 classes that I needed an 86 equivalently or better on to get an A on that final, right? Okay, there was linear algebra, there was math analysis, and then there was one class that I can't even remember which one it was. Oh, yeah, okay. It was the Let Me See class, right? That's what it was. Okay, but the math analysis one was specifically tough because obviously I went from episode 3 or just week 1 in general, where I just had no idea what was going on with the class. I didn't even know that there was going to be a quiz. I didn't understand any of the material, and I came back hard, right? To the point where I didn't really study Fourier transforms as much, right? I wasn't really I understand what Fourier transforms do, but I didn't really know the actual math and how to solve a Fourier transform problem, right? And since there were 8 problems on the final, and one of them was guaranteed to be Fourier transform, that essentially mean I had to go 7 for 8 on the final in order to get an A. And I went 7 for 8. I ended up getting an A in math analysis, and that was so satisfying. That was honestly almost as good of a comeback as my Calc 2 comeback, which, by the way, I'll probably upload season 2 or re-upload it at some point this semester. Maybe. We'll see, right? It's not really that high of a priority, but the idea is that in Calc 2, I also went from an F to an A. That was a pretty impactful one because I turned my whole GPA around from a 2.5 all the way up to a 3.1, right? But that was, if there's another greatest academic of all comeback of all time for me, or as I like to call it, a GACO, that is probably as close as you're going to get, right? That was legendary, absolutely. Okay, the next one was I actually already talked about it, right? This was the unplanned pregnancy. And that's a long word to write, so we're just going to write that, and that was one that I spoiled. It was radiometry. Okay. What is radiometry? Well, radiometry is basically how light bounces off things. That's the best way I can describe it, right? It explains how much light leaves something. It explains how much light enters something. It explains literally so much that I can't even get into in just one little specific thing. But this was the one that I was working up all the way towards the end, right? There were 3 final exams and 3 final projects, and this one was due after finals week had ended. December 19th, 11:59 p.m., which means I was working on that final project until the bitter freaking end, bro. The bitter end. And so it was crazy because this was one that I definitely thought I was writing behind either a C or a D, right? And I thought it wouldn't be nothing else, especially because the curve for that class basically functioned on a lower the ceiling type of deal, right? And what I mean by that is that essentially whoever gets the highest grade in the class, whatever that is, whether it's a 98, whether it's an 89, whatever it is, right? They essentially get boosted up to 100, and then everybody else's grades gets adjusted based off of that, right? I don't know if it's you add a certain amount of percent or if it's you multiply it to get there, right? But crazily enough, somehow got a B. I do not know how. I will gladly take a B. But I'm just saying, this B, I did not have to put in the same amount of work to get this B as this B. And honestly, I don't even know if I deserved a B. Don't ask me anything about radiometry because I will not give you a straight answer. Well, I mean, I will. I like to think I will, honestly. That was a bit of an exaggeration because I feel like I know a decent portion of radiometry, specifically anything that comes to lasers. I really appreciate lasers a lot, but anything regarding radiometers is not really my strong suit, right? So those are those things, right? Okay, the next thing that I named the cool unk from the start, and then he later became the chalant unk because he was not cool at all and he is downright a villain, right? I described it as trauma is a 6-letter word, and this class taught me trauma. It was semiconductor and laser physics. I will actually go SCLP, okay? The reason why I hate this class so much is because it says semiconductor and laser physics, and the only thing you learn about that class is semiconductors. It's such a rage bait and such a baity title, right? And so I'm just hoping to learn more about it in the future, because I feel like this just didn't do a good job, right? The only reason it was good, it's a 1 out of 10, and it would be a 0 out of 10 if that freaking TA wasn't absolutely goated, right? And so, I mean, when I took that final, let me just tell you, bro, when I took that final, that was the first, I mean, there were definitely a lot of scares between writing a C and a D, but this was the first time I actually had to be like, oh my gosh, I think I actually have to retake a class. Like, that was actually my reaction. I'm not even kidding. Like, when I walked out of the final, I walked down with my head down. I was like, oh, wow. Like, I was actually genuinely in shock. I can't even lie. So, basically, I mean, it was a crazy thing because I feel like the professor, when he first met me, right, I told you about the did you knock thing. If you, I mean, I know it's a long recap, it's basically a length of the movie, but if you want to figure out more about that, I believe I talked about it in the 36 through 98 episode. Basically, pretty much, we started off on bad terms, right, and then we slowly, I think, he started to gain respect for me, and I think what really pushed it over the edge was the fact that when I went to use the bathroom during the final, he didn't ask me to leave any of the stuff. I asked the TA, and the TA got approval from the professor. I decided to leave all my stuff because it's just a habit, right? Of pretty much like they ask you to leave your phone or whatever. I just take everything out of my pockets just to be like, man, this is all I got, bro. Like, I'm not, like, I swear I'm not cheating, right? Just to really, like, drive the point, right? And I think he respected it. He gave, like, a nod, the same nod that he gave in the office. He was like that kind of thing. And I was like, that was very respectful. So, you know, I don't know what reason, okay? I'm going to say the grade I got, and this was the most crazy pop-off that I had of them all. I might upload it as, like, a short or something like that just to show you guys the reaction. I know in, like, Season 2, when I did the greatest academic comeback of all time episode, which was episode 121, that was the Calculus 2 one. I kind of cut the video, and then I showed you the reaction in it. But I think this time I might just upload it as a short, maybe link it to this video. We'll see what happens. Basically, I got a B, right? Which was absolutely phenomenal. Once again, I thought I was going to have to retake it. I genuinely did, but, you know, it felt incredible. When I looked in there, because originally I was looking in there because I knew I got a B in linear algebra. So I wanted to see if that got posted. And so I happened to look in there, and I saw a B for semiconductor and laser physics. And I'm not even kidding. I literally screamed in excitement, and I did hops around the apartment. I was literally jumping for joy, bro. It was such an ecstatic experience seeing that B, bro. But oh my gosh, dude, that was quite a handful of a class, bro. Okay? On the other hand, a more tame one, let me see. Okay? This one was a final project one, right, where I needed an 86, and I was able to work with a partner. That was the whole Final 2 thing. Again, if you need more info on the Final 2, feel free to go watch the Final 2 episode. It's episode 2 of Season 5. Okay, basically, me and my partner, we were able to get the final project done, and it worked pretty dang well. We got 102%, so obviously we got an A in there, which was very satisfying, right? And then finally, there was the lab. Okay, I thought I'd honestly get a B for this one, and I did not want to retake it, but I will say this, is that my final project, or I should say my group's final project, really showed professional quality, especially because I was editing the video, and they were fantastic lab mates in lab. I mean, I've got all good things to say about these guys, genuinely. This especially felt like a game of either Big Brother and also The Apprentice, a good mix of both. The lab itself, I ended up getting an A in there, right? Which is absolutely massive. Okay? This is great. This brought this entire semester, so obviously focusing on academics paid off, right? Half A's, half B's. It brought my GPA up to a 3.176, which is very, very nice. But that was really the whole theme, right? Is that if there's one real takeaway from the semester, we'll just get into this, okay? We'll get into this. What did we learn from this semester? Because there's a lot of good ones. Like, one is that, as I said earlier, is the fact that if you want to do something, you have to get it done early, right? That was one of the main things that I learned, and just because I didn't get everything that I didn't get done early, right? Internships I didn't do early, and now I'm having to suffer the consequences of trying to rush a little bit more to get an internship. I'm definitely still planning on gunning for one. However, it's going to be a little bit harder because I didn't prioritize it as much, right? Because I was just too focused on academics. But there was also research, which I did do early on, and as a result, I was able to at least get a position that I now have to rekindle going into semester 6, okay? That was one, okay? The second one is the fact that you have to set deadlines, okay? Saying you're going to do it tomorrow, saying you're going to do it later today is not enough. You have to be strict on this day, it is getting done. And so I think it is very nice that we're holding ourselves accountable. And like I said, I'll talk about a little bit more about this and why I switched it to 1 or 2 right after this, right? But basically the idea is that if you want something done, you have to get it done and out of the way long beforehand, okay? That is the key element, okay? It's just a don't procrastinate thing, okay? Going into this semester, I'm looking at my assignments, I'm looking at some of my syllabi, and I know I'm not going to be able to get away with procrastination this time. This is actually going to be full-on projects that we need to get done beforehand, right? So that's that one, okay? Third, this is the most important thing. If you've taken anything away from watching my episodes, which, by the way, thank you for watching up to this point. I really do appreciate it. But if you need to take away with anything, if you need to take away from anything about this semester, great things require great sacrifice. That is the number one lesson I learned. Because going into the semester, I did the one thing that I didn't want to do, which was I sacrificed everything for academics. Like I said, there was someone watching this that commented, not commented on a YouTube video, but they commented to me, they talked to me about it, and said that basically season 5 in a nutshell was seeing me go through the process of sacrificing all these things one by one so that I can just do academics, right? Obviously, I'm not proud of it. There's things that I would change, maybe, right? Things that I wish I kind of prioritized a little more over academics. But the thing is that in order to do well on something, you have to cut out things that don't necessarily need to be there, right? And that obviously all these things I feel like are essential to me and who I am and who I want to be, right? But the thing is that the reason why I hated this semester so much, I'll be honest, I didn't like it. I sacrificed everything, right? I loved the academic part. I loved the big brother element. I loved a lot of things, and I'm going to come along with a lot of good takeaways. But the reality is that I lost who I was this semester. I absolutely despised a lot of these classes, and I know the reason why I despised a lot of these classes was because I was spending all my time around them, because I wasn't doing anything else. So if you really want something, because here's the thing, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want this degree bad. I want it bad, and I know I want it bad, and I know my future self will want it bad, and I know the future me who wants to develop a family, have kids, make sure we can go on like vacations and stuff, have nice things, do all these things. I know that he would have wanted me to go after this, right? I'm doing this because this is what I truly love, even if it means sacrificing 9 other things that I either love or think are really important, right? The things in life that are most important to you and should be the most important to you are the things that you should be sacrificing, whatever else needs sacrificing. That's really all I can say, right? Even if it's not, sometimes it's not healthy. Don't go doing everything exactly like I did, right? Don't go sacrificing sleep Don't go sacrificing some of your hobbies. Don't go sacrificing looking for a job. That's pretty important, right? But the main thing is that if you want something, you have to go out and get it. And you have to go hard. You have to give it 100%. You have to give it 100%. Wow. Dude. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry on camera. I'm not gonna cry on camera, but just like thinking about how far we've come from where I was when I was like locked and loaded, and now that I've unloaded the chamber, I'm like, we really went, wow, there's just no words to describe it, honestly. But one thing I will say, okay, now that we've talked about what happened, okay, let's talk about where we're going, right? The thing is that going into this semester, I want to try and balance the same 10 things, right? But it's going to be a little bit interesting this semester, right? Just because the amount of 17 credits, well, thankfully, this is the main thing, is that now we finished the last semester in our thing with 17 credits in our plan, I guess, in our undergraduate degree, which is really good. Okay, the first semester I had, I believe, 14, right? That was the lowest I ever got, and that's actually the worst I ever did. Then afterwards, I believe the numbers were, hang on, let me do some quick math. Let's see, physics. And there was Count 2, and then there was Gen Ed, right? Or was this a Gen Ed already? So 4, 8, 11, 14, okay, yeah, so 17. So 14, 17, then it was 19, then I believe it was 17, and then it was 17 again, right? We've had so many of these, it was actually probably 18, that would be my guess, this was probably 18. We've had so many of these 17 to 19 credit torture chambers, and now we're finally starting to see the upside of it, okay? I need to fit in an extra 2 credits in there somewhere because I plan on getting an honors degree, but as it stands right now, semester 6 is going to be 13 credits, semester 7 is 15, and semester 8 is 12. Oh my gosh, we finally got to a point where we might actually have time for things other than academics. It feels great, bro. Finally, bro. It's about damn time. It's about damn time. Seriously. So, basically, going into it, though, it should be a really interesting thing, right? Because, especially tomorrow, right, and this is talking about this, right? I have a lot. I'll be completely honest, okay? This is the one thing that I'm going to say, okay? Is that I have a lab, right? And similarly to this lab, it takes place Wednesdays from 5 to 8, right? That much I will say, just because it is relevant for the plot, and I will not say anything else. Okay? So, the thing is, though, is that this completely changes how I might approach tomorrow, because so far I don't know if this is going on tomorrow, I don't know if it's not going to happen, or if it's going to actually happen, which would be insane because the syllabus hasn't even been posted yet. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it's either going to make my, if it's not there, then it's going to make my day essentially from 9 to 2 for classes, and if it is there, it's going to make my day from 9 to 8. So obviously it's a 6-hour difference, and it makes a big impact whether or not it's going to happen. So I mean, I really hope it doesn't happen. Not just, I mean, I'm curious to see where the labs go, but I feel like I want a little bit more prep before we hop into a lab. So I'm really hoping, just for tomorrow's sake and for the sake of dipping my toes in the water, that we don't have to deal with that tomorrow, because that would not be ideal, okay? All of the classes this semester I'm going to refer to, okay, by specific numbers, okay? And I might come up with nicknames for them at some point, but for now, we're just going to do numbers, okay? One of these numbers, let's use a different color because there's a lot of purple on the board. One of the classes is going to be 33. Another one is going to be 34. Another one is going to be 370. Oh, not 70. 37. Wow, my fucking English. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It's like 11:41 right now. Oh my gosh, I'm just tired, bro. I'm tired. I need to take my ass to bed, bro. And that's one thing I want to work on. I want to work on stop swearing. I gotta stop swearing, really. I should. So, okay, anyways. So, one of them I'm gonna do is 3. I almost did it again. Sorry, it's just like, I'm so used to like referring to these classes as different things. Like math analysis, I always code by like 323. I think, or 322. And like linear algebra, I call it by like 313 or something like that. So, I mean, in reality, that's just why I'm mixing up these things, right? But basically, these have no correlation with that, I swear, right? I will reveal the correlation between these numbers and what they actually mean by the end of these things, but basically we have 33, 34, 37, okay, 38, and then actually one that I skipped earlier, 32. These are the 5 classes that I have this semester, right? I will refer to each of them by their code names, right? And we will just go through the semester like that, okay? And the ones, it's really interesting because I have it lined up in a day where basically sometimes I have 3 in one day, sometimes I have 2 in one day, sometimes I have 1 in one day, and sometimes I have 4. So it really is all over the place. But the idea is that everything, Wednesday, the core idea here is that Wednesday is overloaded, oversaturated, I should say, and then every other day is not as bad in comparison. That's pretty much what it boils down to. So, I mean, what else is there to talk about, really? I think we covered everything. Damn, is that really how we're gonna say goodbye to season 5? I mean, you know what? Season 6 starts tomorrow, so I guess that is. Alright. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much. And I will see you guys for the first take of season 6. You can't end on that. Not on that. Cut.